Notice how the moon is illuminated. Now I'm going to slow down the shutter, and by watching the progression of the moon's illumination, you can see that the moon is indeed following Lambert's law.
There it is. Check it out, guys. That is so exciting. Incredible.
Hello my friends, I'm Kyle Thompson. This is Research Flat Earth. And as always, welcome back.
I'm going to show you using scripture that both the sun and the moon are located inside the earth. They're not thousands of millions of miles away like the science field will have you believe. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 17 says that the Most High set both the sun and the moon in the firmament, not outside of the firmament, in order to give light upon the earth. The sun gives light in the day, the moon at night. Alright? Now this is same chapter of Genesis, chapter 1, but this is the common English version of the Bible, as you see here. Okay? And we're going to read that same verse. World's creation in 7 days. It says that Yah put the sun and the moon in the dome of the sky to shine on the earth. So this version actually says that there is a dome above the earth. And that's where the sun and moon are located, within that dome. Straight from the Bible. So who are you going to believe? The science field that is run by the satanic government? Or are you going to believe the scriptures? Now this will be a more accurate depiction of how things really look regarding the moon and the sun. As you can see in this picture, the sun is inside the dome of the earth that we just read about in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 17. The moon likewise. Alright? So don't believe the mainstream science field. All those science books you read about in high school, grammar school, even college, that's garbage. Worship Yah always.
I was going to just talk through this video, but I was pointed to another video showing or claiming to say that super zoom cameras are better than telescopes. So I'm just going to let things fly and not talk.
On the left, it's set up for Sydney, Australia, 34-7. There we go. Dislike. You don't need a telescope, you just need a decent zoom lens camera, and my footage on my channel is outstanding. It's much more powerful than Galileo's telescope. So does that make me much more intelligent and better than Galileo? You know, no it doesn't. I'm just a guy with a zoom lens camera that can film the night sky. Think thick stone, we're spinning underneath. That explains why when you go further out towards the edge you struggle to see the stars in the middle. That's bloody simple, and that's why the Big Dipper's upside down, because you've just walked underneath it, walked further away and turned round. It's just simple stuff. These telescopes cost thousands of pounds and they're rubbish. Sorry to disappoint anybody that's just gone and bought one. I did have a telescope when I first started this stuff. I thankfully managed to sell it for 80 quid on Gumtree. Yeah, they're just a joke. I mean, a lot of these ones have got CGI software built into them. Don't waste your time, just buy a decent zoom lens camera. Wolfie 6020 flat earth scan telescope. We don't need to. We're not interested in that. I'll do a video on how simplistic the night sky is, and it's for dummies. An idiot can look at the night sky and see stuff. You know, you overcomplicate things with all this crap and all these mounts and this and that. My camera does the job. That's all anyone ever needs to do. Buy a decent zoom lens camera.
Well, it's still not completely dark yet, but I'm getting more and more contrast available without the skylight intruding so much. And I think I've got some pretty good pictures. I'm currently on ISO 320 at 1/15th of a second. Even though I'm in video mode, obviously. But, well, let's see what we've got. It's a nice looking surface details near the terminator. Getting a tad blown out on the lit side. But, yeah, not terribly interesting detail there, or is there? There's a simple way to find out, and that's just to reduce the shutter speed. Pardon the camera shake. Whoops, that's increasing it. 1/30th of a second. 1/60th of a second. I'm past 2 stops underexposed now. And let's go to 125. And I think that's as far as I should go. So let's go back to some decent exposure. I like to be about 1 under for the moon because, like I said, it's a dark object and the camera is attempting to get an 18% gray card perfectly exposed. That's just how the meter works. But the moon is more like a 7%. So 1 stop still gives you a little bit brighter than the actual surface of the moon. However, it just looks better on film or video. So, you know, that's some artistic license there with the exposure metering. So let's proceed down. I want to move the moon up a bit. And there's really nice detail there. And here the camera meter exposure meter is lying to me because now I've got a bunch of sky in the image. It says I'm more than 2 stops underexposed, not realizing that it's the moon I want to be properly exposed, not black sky. Actually, it's still a dark blue. I can still see my hands and stuff. It's not yet dark. get long twilight periods in the summer.
Anyway, there's so many people bashing this stuff because there's much more going on. Most of these guys are trying to cover up and hide where we really are, and that's why there's so many people bashing the flat earth.
So, lunar libration is the name of a phenomenon, basically the moon wiggling about as it orbits the Earth. And I've been trying to photograph it, but I have a certain issue where I am, and that is trees. Completely surrounded by them. And obviously when the moon is in its crescent phases, it gets buried behind the trees. So I got trees. There's the moon. So what happens is as the moon orbits the Earth, according to Kepler's second law, according to the first law, it's orbiting in an ellipse. All fine and dandy. I'm going to have to draw a diagram. Even though this is actually basic knowledge, draw a diagram anyway. So the moon orbits in an ellipse. And according to the second law of Kepler's planetary motion, it sweeps out equal areas in equal times. That's just a fancy way of saying it's going faster when it's closer to the Earth. There we go. So, the moon orbits in an ellipse. And when it's close, and it sweeps out equal areas in equal times. So those are Kepler's first two laws of planetary motion. And the moon follows those two laws, orbiting the Earth. So here's the thing. The moon is rotating about its own axis. And it just happens to rotate at a rate such that from phase to phase, like full moon to full moon, you're always seeing the same face. Always. Because of tidal locking. Gravitational phenomenon there. And conservation of angular momentum. Combination of the both. So you end up with the same face facing the Earth. But do you? Well, it's going in an ellipse. And the rotation's not going to speed up and slow down. That is, the axial rotation of the moon itself. It's not going to speed up and slow down just to keep the same face facing towards us. So it should wiggle left or right. that's not the only thing it should do. The orbit is also at an inclination to the Earth's equator. I forget the exact number, 5-ish degrees. And I've been trying to photograph this phenomenon, but yeah, try and get 27 or so straight days of clear skies where I live. Doesn't really happen. So, doing some searching, I actually found, believe it or not, on Wikipedia, someone has actually caught this phenomenon. They've assembled 27 photos together into an animation. And it's really quite startling just how much of the moon reveals itself. And that is what they call lunar libration. It is also serious evidence in favor of a globe Earth model and heliocentrism. I don't see any way you can use synthetic astronomy or flat Earth concepts to describe this motion. And it also reinforces the fact that the moon is not a disk. It is also a sphere.
Are you recording? Yep. Okay. See, the moon is right over there. It's full as heck right now. You can zoom in on that. And we're gonna test temperatures on one side of a car to another side of a car. We're gonna do it on two different cars. And the wind isn't even a factor right now. It's not even blowing. Are you still recording?
Yeah.
Okay, come on. So this is a thermometer, and it's reading 59 degrees. This is the moonlight. We'll get out of the way of the moonlight. 62 degrees, and this is in the moonlight.
Hold on.
60, wow, 60 degrees.
Okay, I gotta keep it right here to see it.
59 degrees. Now we're gonna move over to the other side of the car, where the moon is not on. We're just moving. And we're gonna try this again here. It's now reading 65 degrees.
Okay, now just move the laser up.
And I'm moving the laser to where the moonlight is shining, and it rapidly drops.
Okay, move it back down.
I'm gonna move it back down here. Goes back up.
Jump back up.
65 degrees, and back on the hood where the moon is shining. It's almost a 10-degree change. And we're going to do this on another car over here. We're going to go out of the moonlight. It's a dark car.
Moon's there.
It's a dark car. This is out of the moonlight. 66.6 degrees. We're going to move it into the moonlight slowly. And it's dropping dramatically. Same kind of paint on both the hood, or the trunk, and the side of the car. 55.8 in the moonlight. Moving back to the side. Jumps up to 66 degrees.
Yep.
That's proof that the moon is a cooling influence to us.
It's a cooling light.
It's a cooling light, not a heat light. 55 degrees in the moonlight. 65 degrees out of the moonlight.
10-degree difference.
10-degree difference.
Do the next car here.
Another car, we got silver paint. We had white paint, now we had darker paint, now we have silver paint. And here we go again. You can see it, folks.
Let me see if I can get the moon in there when you're doing it. Okay, the moon's right there.
Can you see it?
So this side of the car is out of the moonlight.
Can you see it?
Yep, 65.
And then we're going to move it up on top of the hood. It goes down to 58 degrees. 50. Oh.
You're moving it.
There we go. Silver paint. 59 degrees, 58 degrees in the moonlight.
Yeah.
Now we're moving in the moon, out of the moonlight, 64, 65 degrees. The moon is a cooling light.
Yeah.
Proof right here, guys. 63 degrees out of the moonlight.
Yeah.
58 degrees in the moonlight.
Yep.
56.
One more time, bring it back
Bring
down.
it back down again, out of the moonlight.
Yeah.
That's proof. Proof that the moon is a cooling light. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Have a good one.
The book of the courses of the luminaries of heaven, the relations of each according to their classes, their dominion, and their seasons, according to their names and places of origin, and according to their months, which Uriel, the holy angel who was with me, who is their guide, showed me. And he showed me all their laws exactly as they are, and how it is with regard to all the years of the world and unto eternity, till the new creation is accomplished, which dureth till eternity. And this is the first law of the luminaries. The luminary, the sun, has its rising in the eastern portals of the heaven, and its setting in the western portals of the heaven. And I saw 6 portals in which the sun rises, and 6 portals in which the sun sets. And the moon rises and sets in these portals. And the leaders of the stars, and those whom they lead, 6 in the east and 6 in the west, and all following each other in accurately corresponding order. Also, many windows to the right and left of those portals. And first there goes forth the great luminary, named the sun, and his circumference is like the circumference of heaven, and he is quite filled with illuminating and heating fire. The chariot on which he ascends, the wind drives, and the sun goes down from the heaven and returns through the north in order to reach the east, and is so guided that he comes to the appropriate portal, and shines in the face of heaven. In this way he rises in the first month in the great portal, which is the 4th, those 6 portals in the east. And in that 4th portal, from which the sun rises in the first month, are 12 window openings, from which proceed a flame when they are opened in their season. When the sun rises in the heaven, he comes forth through that 4th portal 30 mornings in succession, and sets accurately in the 4th portal in the west of the heaven. And during this period, the day becomes daily longer, and the night nightly shorter, to the 30th morning. On that day, the day is longer than the night by a 9th part, and the day amounts exactly to 10 parts, and the night to 8 parts. And the sun rises from that 4th portal and sets in the 4th, and returns to the 5th portal of the east 30 mornings, and rises from it, and sets in the 5th portal. And then the day becomes longer by 2 parts, and amounts to 11 parts, and the night becomes shorter, and amounts to 7 parts. And it returns to the east, and enters into the 6th portal, and rises and sets in the 6th portal 31 mornings, on account of its sign. On that day, the day becomes longer than the night, and the day becomes double the night, and the day becomes 12 parts, and the night is shortened and becomes 6 parts. And the sun mounts up to make the day shorter and the night longer. And the sun returns to the east and enters into the 6th portal, and rises from it and sets 30 mornings. And when the 30 mornings are accomplished, the day decreases by exactly 1 part, and becomes 11 parts, and the night 7. And the sun goes forth from that 6th portal in the west, and goes to the east, and rises in the 5th portal for 30 mornings, and sets in the west again in the 5th western portal. On that day the day decreases by 2 parts, and amounts to 10 parts, and the night to 8 parts. And the sun goes forth from that 5th portal, and sets in the 5th portal of the west, and rises in the 4th portal for 31 mornings on account of its sign, and sets in the west. On that day the day is equalized with the night, and becomes of equal length. And the night amounts to 9 parts, and the day to 9 parts. And the sun rises from that portal and sets in the west, and returns to the east, and rises 30 mornings in the 3rd portal, and sets in the west in the 3rd portal. And on that day the night becomes longer than the day, and night becomes longer than night, and day shorter than day, until the 30th morning. And the night amounts to exactly 10 parts, and the day to 8 parts. And the sun rises from that third portal and sets in the third portal in the west, and returns to the east, and for 30 mornings rises in the second portal in the east, and in like manner sets in the second portal in the west of the heaven. And on that day the night amounts to 11 parts, and the day to 7 parts. And the sun rises on that day from the second portal, and sets in the west in the second portal, and returns to the east into the first portal for 31 mornings, and sets in the first portal in the west of the heaven. And on that day the night becomes longer, and amounts to the double of the day. And the night amounts exactly to 12 parts, and the day to 6. And the sun is therewith traversed the divisions of his orbit, and turns again on those divisions of his orbit, and enters that portal 30 mornings, and also sets in the west opposite to it. And on that night has the night decreased in length by a 9th part, and the night has become 11 parts, and the day 7 parts. And the sun has returned and entered into the second portal in the east, and returns on those his divisions of his orbit for 30 mornings, rising and setting. And on that day the night decreases in length, and the night amounts to 10 parts, and the day to 8. And on that day the sun rises from that portal, and sets in the west, and returns to the east, and rises in the third portal for 31 mornings, and sets in the west of the heaven. On that day the night decreases and amounts to 9 parts, and the day to 9 parts, and the night is equal to the day, and the year is exactly as to its days 364. And the length of the day and of the night, and the shortness of the day and the night arise through the course of the sun. These distinctions are made. So it comes that its course becomes daily longer, and its course nightly shorter. And this is the law and the course of the sun. And his return as often as he returns, 60 times and rises, the great luminary which is named the sun forever and ever. And that which thus rises is the great luminary, and is so named according to its appearance, according as the Lord commanded. As he rises, so he sets, and decreases not, and rests not, but runs day and night, and his light is 7-fold brighter than that of the moon. But as regards size, they are both equal. And after this law, I saw another law dealing with the smaller luminary, which is named the moon. And her circumference is like the circumference of heaven, and her chariot in which she rides is driven by the wind, and light is given to her in definite measure. And her rising and setting change every month, and her days are like the days of the sun. And when her light is uniform, it amounts to the 7th part of the light of the sun, and thus she rises. And her first phase in the east comes forth on the 30th morning, and on that day she becomes visible, and constitutes for you the first phase of the moon on the 30th day, together with the sun in the portal where the sun rises. And the 1/2 of her goes forth by a 7th part, and her whole circumference is empty, without light, with the exception of 1/7 part of it, and the 14th part of her light. And when she receives 1/7 part of the half of her light amounts to 1/7 part, and the half thereof. And she sets with the sun, and when the sun rises, the moon rises with him, and receives the half of 1 part of light. And in the night, in the beginning of her morning, in the commencement of the lunar day, the moon sets with the sun, and is invisible that night, with the 14 parts and the half of 1 of them. And she rises on that day with exactly a 7th part, and comes forth, and recedes from the rising of the sun. And in her remaining days she becomes bright in the remaining 13 parts. And I saw another course, a law for her, and how according to that law she performs her monthly revolution. And all these Uriel, the holy angel, who was the leader of them all, showed to me, and their positions, and I wrote down their positions as he showed them to me, and I wrote down their months as they were, and the appearance of their lights, till 15 days were accomplished. In single 7th parts she accomplishes all her light in the east, and in single 7th parts she accomplishes all her darkness in the west. And in certain months she alters her settings, and in certain months she pursues her own peculiar course. In 2 months the moon sets with the sun, in those 2 middle portals, the 3rd and the 4th. She goes forth for 7 days, and turns about, and returns again through the portal where the sun rises, and accomplishes all her light. And she recedes from the sun, and in 8 days enters the 6th portal, from which the sun goes forth. And when the sun goes forth from the 4th portal, she goes forth 7 days, until she goes forth from the 5th, and turns back again in 7 days into the 4th portal, and accomplishes all her light. And she recedes and enters into the 1st portal in 8 days, and she returns again in 7 days into the 4th portal, from which the sun goes forth. Thus I saw their position, how the moons rose and the sun set in those days. And if 5 years are added together, the sun has an overplus of 30 days. And all the days which accrue to it for one of those 5 years, when they are full, amount to 364 days. And the overplus of the sun and of the stars amounts to 6 days. In 5 years, 6 days every year come to 30 days, and the moon falls behind the sun and stars to the number of 30 days. And the sun and the stars bring in all the years exactly, so that they do not advance or delay their position by a single day unto eternity, but complete the years with perfect justice in 364 days. In 3 years there are 1,092 days, and in 5 years 1,820 days, so that in 8 years there are 2,912 days. For the moon alone the days amount in 3 years to 1,062 days, and in 5 years she falls 50 days behind. And in years there are added 1,770 days, so that for the moon the days in 8 years amount to 2,832 days. For in 8 years she falls behind to the amount of 80 days. And all the days she falls behind in 8 years are 80. And the year is accurately completed in conformity with their world stations, and the stations of the sun, which rise from the portals through which the sun rises and sets 30 days. And the leaders of the heads of the thousands who are placed over the whole creation and over all the stars have also to do with the 4 intercalary days, being inseparable from their office, according to the reckoning of the year. And these render service on the 4 days, which are not reckoned in the reckoning of the year. And owing to them men go wrong therein, for those luminaries truly render service on the world stations, one in the 1st portal, one in the 3rd portal of the heaven, one in the 4th portal, and one in the 6th portal. And the exactness of the year is accomplished through its separate 364 stations. For the signs and the times and the years and the days the angel Uriel showed to me, whom the Lord of glory hath set forever over all the luminaries of the heaven, in the heaven and in the world, that they should rule on the face of the heaven and be seen on the earth, and be leaders for the day and the night, the sun, the moon, and stars, and all the ministering creatures which make their revolution in all the chariots of the heaven, through which the rays of the sun break forth, and from them warmth is diffused over the earth. And when they are opened at their appointed seasons, and the winds and the spirit of the dew, when they are open, standing open in the heavens at the ends. As for the 12 portals in the heaven, at the ends of the earth, out of which go forth the sun, moon, and stars, and all the works of heaven in the east and in the west, there are many windows open to the left and right of them, and one window at its appointed season produces warmth, corresponding as these do to those doors from which the stars come forth, according as he hath commanded them, and wherein they set corresponding to their number. And I saw chariots in the heaven, running in the world, above those portals in which revolve the stars that never set. And one is larger than all the rest, and it is that makes its course through the entire world. And at the ends of the earth I saw 12 portals open to all the quarters of the heaven, from which the winds go forth, and blow over the earth. 3 of them are open on the face of the heavens, and 3 in the west, and 3 on the right of heaven, and 3 on the left. And the 3 first are those of the east, and 3 are of the north, and 3 after those on the left of the south, and 3 of the west. Through 4 of these come winds of blessing and prosperity, and from those 8 come hurtful winds. When they are sent, they bring destruction on all the earth, and on the water upon it, and on all who dwell thereon, and on everything which is in the water and on the land. And the first wind from those portals, called the east wind, comes forth through the first portal, which is in the east, inclining towards the south. From it comes forth desolation, drought, heat, and destruction. And through the second portal in the middle comes what is fitting. And from it there comes rain and fruitfulness and prosperity and dew. And through the third portal, which lies toward the north, come cold and drought. And after these come forth the south winds through 3 portals. Through the first portal of them, inclining to the east, comes forth a hot wind. And through the middle portal next to it, there come forth fragrant smells, and dew, and rain, and prosperity, and health. And through the third portal lying in the west come forth dew and rain, locusts and desolation. And after these the north winds. From the 7th portal in the east come dew and rain, locusts and devastation. And from the middle portal come in a direct direction health and rain and dew and prosperity. And through the third portal in the west come cloud and hoarfrost and snow and rain and dew and locusts. And after these 4 are the west winds. Through the first portal adjoining the north come forth dew and hoarfrost, and cold and snow and frost. And from the middle portal come forth dew and rain, and prosperity and blessing. And through the last portal, which adjoins the south, come forth drought and desolation, and burning and destruction. And the 12 portals of the 4 quarters of the heaven are therewith completed. And all their laws, and all their plagues, and all their benefactions I have shown to thee, my son Methuselah. And the first quarter is called the east, because it is the first. And the second, the south, because the Most High will descend there. Yea, there in quite a special sense will he who is blessed forever descend. And the west quarter is named the diminished, because there all the luminaries of heaven wane and go down. And the fourth quarter, named the north, is divided into 3 parts. The first of them is for the dwelling of men, and the second contains seas of water, and the abysses and forests and rivers, and darkness and clouds. And the third part contains the garden of righteousness. I saw 7 high mountains, higher than all the mountains which are on the earth, and thence comes forth hoarfrost, and days, seasons, and years pass away. I saw 7 rivers on the earth, larger than all the rivers. One of them, coming from the west, pours its waters into the great sea. And these 2 come from the north to the sea, and pour their waters into the Erythraean Sea in the east. And the remaining 4 come forth on the side of the north to their own sea, 2 of them to the Erythraean Sea, and 2 into the great sea, and discharge themselves there, and some say into the desert. 7 great islands I saw in the sea, and in the mainland, 2 in the mainland, and 5 in the great sea. And the names of the sun are the following: the first, Orhares; the second, Tomas. And the moon has 4 names. The first name is Asonja, the second, Ebla, the third, Benasse, and the fourth, Erae. These are the 2 great luminaries. Their circumference is like the circumference of the heaven, and the size of the circumference of both is alike. In the circumference of the sun there are 7 portions of light, which are added to it more than to the moon, and in definite measures it is transferred till the 7th portion of the sun is exhausted. And they set and enter the portals of the west, and make their revolution by the north, and come forth through the eastern portals on the face of the heaven. And when the moon rises 1/14th part, it appears in the heaven, and the light becomes full in her. On the 14th day she accomplishes her light. And 15 parts of light are transferred to her till the 15th day, when her light is accomplished, according to the sign of the year, and she becomes 15 parts, and the moon grows by the addition of 14 parts. And in her waning the moon decreases on the first day to 14 parts of her light, and on the second to 13 parts of her light, and on the third to 12, on the fourth to 11, on the fifth to 10, on the sixth to 9, on the 7th to 8, on the 8th to 7, on the 9th to 6, on the 10th to 5, on the 11th to 4, on the 12th to 3, on the 13th to 2, on the 14th to the half of a 7th, and all her remaining light disappears wholly on the 15th. And in certain months the month has 29 days, and once 28. And Uriel showed me another law, when light is transferred to the moon, and on which side it is transferred to her by the sun. During all the period during which the moon is growing in her light, she is transferring it to herself when opposite to the sun during 14 days. Her light is accomplished in the heaven. And when she is illuminated throughout, her light is accomplished full in the heaven. And on the first day she is called the new moon, for on that day the light rises upon her. She becomes full moon exactly on the day when the sun sets in the west, and from the east she rises at night. And the moon shines the whole night through till the sun rises over against her, and the moon is seen over against the sun, on the side whence the light of the moon comes forth. There again she wanes till the light vanishes, and all the days of the month are at an end, and her circumference is empty, void of light. And 3 months she makes of 30 days, and at her time she makes 3 months of 29 days each, in which she accomplishes her waning in the first period of time, and in the first portal for 177 days. And in the time of her going out she appears for 3 months of 30 days each, and for 3 months she appears of 29 days each. At night she appears like a man for 20 days each time, and by day she appears like the heaven, and there is nothing else in her save her light. And now, my son, I have shown thee everything, and the laws of all the stars of heaven is completed. And he showed me all the laws of these for every day, and for every season of bearing rule, and for every year, and for its going forth, and for the order prescribed to it every month and every week, and the waning of the moon which takes place in the 6th portal. For in this 6th portal her light is accomplished. And after that there is the beginning of the waning. And the waning which takes place in the 1st portal in its season, till 177 days are accomplished, reckoned according to weeks, 25 weeks and 2 days. She falls behind the sun in the order of the stars exactly 5 days in the course of one period. And when this place which thou seest has been traversed, such is the picture and sketch of every luminary which Uriel the archangel, who is their leader, showed unto me. And in those days the angel Uriel answered and said to me, Behold, I have shown thee everything, Enoch, and I have revealed everything to thee, that thou shouldest see this sun and this moon, and the leaders of the stars of the heaven, and all those who turn them, their tasks, and times, and departures. And in the days of the sinners the years shall be shortened, and their seed shall be tardy in their lands and fields. And all things on the earth shall alter, and shall not appear in their time. And the rain shall be kept back, and the heaven shall withhold it. And in those times the fruits of the earth shall be backward, and shall not grow in their time. And the fruits of the trees shall be withheld in their time. And the moon shall alter her order, and not appear at her time. And in those days the sun shall be seen, and he shall journey in the evening on the extremity of the great chariot in the west, and shall shine more brightly than accords with the order of light. And many chiefs of the stars shall transgress the order prescribed, and these shall alter their orbits and tasks, and not appear at the seasons prescribed to them. And the whole order of the stars shall be concealed from the sinners, and the thoughts of those on the earth shall err concerning them. And they shall be altered from all their ways. Yea, they shall err and take them to be gods. And evil shall be multiplied upon them, and punishment shall come upon them, so as to destroy all.
friends, Eric Bowser here. For those of you who want to live forever and want to get on the path or the road to eternal life, just repeat this humble prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I admit that I am a sinner, and I confess with my mouth, and I believe in my heart that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God. He died on the cross for my sins. He arose 3 days later. He sits at the right hand of the Father. I ask him to forgive my sins. Come into my heart. Save me in the day of trouble. Keep me holy and guide me with every step. In Jesus Christ's holy name, amen. Now that's just the first step. You got to continue on. You just made a declaration before all of heaven, and Satan's seen that too. So you're going to be in for a fight. He's going to try everything in his power to get you off that path. So you're going to have to learn how to fight. You're going to have to learn how to do spiritual warfare. God provided you with an excellent tool called the Bible. First thing you're going to need to do is get the real Bible. The real Bible is called Authorized King James Version. Make sure you get that Bible. And an excellent book that you can start off reading in is a book of Proverbs and a book of Psalms. Because those are very relevant books to what be going on in everyday life. And it's a lot of wisdom in those books. I really love those books. Also, you can read the Gospels of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ came down in the flesh to show us that it can be done, and he showed us how to do it. Those are some very good examples. Although we'll never be perfect like Christ, but we are to our very best to be Christ-like. And all our weaknesses and all our flaws, we call on the name of the Lord. He can help us. And he can help us overcome our temptations, because we all will be tempted. Every one of us will be tempted. But during the temptation, that's when you call on the Lord. You call on him right then and there when you're getting tempted. Because if you don't, chances are the devil knows what you like, and you're going to give in to it. But, you're going to fall. But every time you fall, just pick yourself back up, because God's mercy is there. God forgives. All condemnation and all that, that's always coming in from the devil. But God is always ready to forgive you. But just don't play him. And don't walk on this sacrifice. Don't just keep thinking you got a license to do sins over and over and over, because you probably could wear out your welcome. But
Flat Earth is becoming a bit of a has become a bit of a phenomenon on the internet, starting sometime last year around April or so. Well, on YouTube primarily. Now here you see a time lapse of the moon coming up in the Taurus constellation from in November. Now, there are two claims made of the moon. One, that it is a light and not a three-dimensional body. So here I have a sequence of photographs of the moon that I've taken myself. Look at the shadows and the craters. Use the pause if you have to. It's clearly a rock, a world. So I devised an experiment for the other claim, which is that the moon chills with its light. What you're looking at here is the setup for the moonlight experiment. This is sensor A, this is sensor B, and I have a clear cup for control, as in case there's a breeze or something, and a cup covered in aluminum foil to provide shade. So basically, and a USB port to send data to the computer for logging purposes, so that it'll be very easy to see what, if anything, happens. The basic protocol is allow the temperature sensors to reach a stable ambient temperature. And the 22nd is supposed to be clear, although right now it's overcast, so I don't know. But the protocol is one sensor gets covered with the clear cup, and the other sensor gets covered with the aluminum cup and is therefore in shade. We let them sit for a while, reach an equilibrium, and then pull them both off. Then we let them reach an equilibrium again and pull a swap. And this should be able to establish what effect light has on the sensors. Okay, I did a calibration test here. Just tossed it in the freezer and recorded it as it warmed up afterwards. And here it is set up in the sunlight to do a control experiment. And as you can see, there is good sunlight to work with, light cloud cover. Now here you can actually see where I covered up sensor A as its temperature dips, and B. And here you can see the difference as they cross the zero line. Very distinct. And now to look for the moon. As you can see, I've got some cloud cover to contend with, but not a lot. The moon was, you can see stars. The moon was casting a distinct shadow, although try and photograph a shadow with a flash. Can't do it. Okay, hello moon. It is 2114, February 22nd, Philadelphia time. As you can see, there is a bit of haze. I can show you how hazy it is. Let's pull out. You can see it's a bit hazier than one would like for this type of experiment, but rain is scheduled for the next 3 days. So I gotta work with what I got. Anyway, I've taken the apparatus inside, recorded the data. I'll throw it into numbers and see what kind of results I've gotten. As I'll explain in the full video, I did a calibration run, which involved chucking the stuff in the freezer, letting it get cold, and then hooking it up, watching it warm up. And I did a sunlight test where I did the experiment, but in sunlight, to confirm that the temperature sensors would at least actually respond. And they did. So I'll be showing that. By the way, this is not the movement you're seeing is not the camera moving on the tripod. It is the relative motion of the camera and the moon, and the tripod and camera are stationary with respect to the Earth. So make of that what you will. And as you can see, the data shows nothing. In fact, the lines are further apart than I'd hoped for, and they trend closer together, but I'm getting a negative result here. No effect from the moonlight whatsoever. And here you can see the tripod and the equipment. That's sensor A covered and sensor B covered. So there you go. My final conclusions are, quite simply, that the moon, by direct observation, is a rocky world, and moonlight does not cool things down. So I think we can dispose of both of those ideas. If you disagree, feel free to comment. And I should also point out, look in the video information section. I have a link to all the data, including the source code used on the Arduino for the Arduino IDE, so that you could reproduce the experiment. The temperature sensors used were TMP36 models. The data sheet for the temperature sensors is also included in the download, as are the images of the moon used in this video. So you will be able to take a closer look at them, and the EXIF header information of the images has exact time and date for when the pictures were taken. So that is all. Have a good night, evening, day, whatever.
If you did like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. If you haven't subscribed, hit the red subscribe button. Also click on the little bell icon to get notifications of my flat earth videos, which I upload every day.